In this video, the middle-aged nerds discuss spoilers from books they read decades ago. Do you really need a spoiler alert? Do you really?
Hi, welcome back to Non-Terrestrial Half-Life, a YouTube show where we reread books from the first half of our life. I'm Glenn, the geeky hippie.
And I'm Bill, also known as Matt Stagger, and joining us yet again for Dragonlance is Jen, the Keeper of the Chronicles. Welcome back.
Lovely to be here, as always, with you fine gentlemen this afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So, Jen, what do you got going on? I understand you got some special stuff coming up.
Still just more Betrayal at Krondor stuff. Speaking of old books and stuff from the first half of our lives, that's literally kind of my entire vibe, what I have going until June. So it is, what is today? Today we are recording, I guess, on the 24th. It is T-minus 1 day less than 1 month until I'm in Oregon. So I'm just kind of getting ready for that convention, doing some last minute interviews, and just kind of talking with a lot of old retro gaming geek nerds. I am really excited because a couple of really high profile retro gaming accounts have deigned, I guess is the word, to sit down with me and talk about this. So I'm nice. it's kind of like, hi, but anyway, it's going very good. And right now the only thing I can think about is the Wheel of Time news for season 2 dropped today. I know we're all buzzing about that.
We only have to wait 100 days.
Yeah, but that's not Gen exclusive or anything. That's just all I can think about. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, me too. That's why I'm wearing the shirt. It's been a Wheel of Time type of day.
Oh, I'm also getting ready for a Dune thing with you guys coming up. I guess I can plug that. I'm extremely excited. Anyone that's watching this should plug our main channel for What the Adaptation. I have not been on, as you guys have been covering The Expanse, and I have not caught up on The Expanse yet. But I will be coming back to discuss Dune. So this next upcoming week, and I am very excited to talk about that with you. Fun. And we'll be talking about several books until the Wheel of Time series drops. So I'll be seeing a lot more of you very soon, and you guys should be checking that out. So yeah, that's also something that I'm doing. I should plug that as well.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's going to be fun Sunday night.
Yeah, yes.
So we're continuing our discussion of the Dragonlance Legends trilogy. This time we're doing War of the Twins. Do you remember the first time you read this book?
No. I actually don't. No? Not this one. Not this particular book. I did with the first one, but the second one, it kind of happens that way in trilogies with me, which I happen to tend to read a lot of. The second book just kind of fades in between the first and the third. Like, I know you get a lot of chunk of the story, but like memories reading, it's hard for me. So I don't remember the exact details of reading this particular book the first time.
For me, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that most of our main characters, pretty much this entire book, show some very unlikable aspects that make me want to forget.
Yeah.
So I remembered bits and pieces, but the bits and pieces I remembered were all Tasselhoff, Karis the elf, the dwarf who,
right. Those are the
one honorable guy in the whole damn story.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I'd say the Solamnic Knights were mostly honorable.
Yeah.
They were trying.
Especially the one who was guarding Raceland's tent.
Yeah.
I was probably 15 or 16. I'm guessing. I don't remember specifically. I remember I read this trilogy almost immediately after finishing Dragonlance Chronicles. Because they had all been published, a year. They were published, I think, all done publishing these 6 in 1986 or so. And I was probably reading them in 87 or 88, like a year or two after they came out. Even the library copies were still brand new, looking brand new. And I know they had been checked out a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't remember much from this one. I had completely forgotten about the Dwarfgate War. The whole Caramon having an army and leading the army of Fistandanelis, that was totally not in my memory. I was like, huh, this is different. They're not different. This is just new to me. I know I've read this. I think I read it when I was in my 20s too, and totally forgot it. But
I
there's lots of
remember that
reasons I
part.
forgot those.
I kept up with
You
that
remember
part.
that part?
Yeah, I remembered he was the leader of the army of Fistandanus. I forgot a lot of the character interaction stuff. You know,
Yeah, me too.
That some of it like surprised me, and some of it just disgusted me, and I felt so betrayed when Caramon is like, "Oh, Chrysania, I love you," and I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa."
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was a little weird.
So, yeah, that came off really weird, and I'm like...
The one I remembered was Tasselhoff and Nimch getting out of the abyss, escaping hell.
Well, yeah,
that's pretty much the only storyline that really stuck in my head.
Yeah, you asked if we meet any of the gnomes, the Tinkerer gnomes, and I kept telling you, we meet one next book, and I remember him.
But I seem to remember being someplace where, like, a home of Tinker gnomes. And it could easily have been one of the many other Dragonlance books, because I read quite a few of those. So
I think I did too, and that's why I remembered that he's basically in the abyss because his stuff worked. And with gnomes, failure is what they consider progress.
Yeah.
The fact that he didn't fail, he succeeded at everything he tried to make, was the reason he ended up in the abyss, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. Were there any other memories that stood out to you from reading them when you were young?
When I was younger, it was more a vibe, not a memory that I had about the book. It was more just kind of because you're kind of immersed, like back in the time, like, you know, you've pulled away from present day and now you're like fully in the past and seeing things that you heard about in the previous books, like just immersion of what the culture was like back then. It was kind of just more of that vibe than actual like scenes or like particular events that happen, even though this book is event based. It's very like plot driven, very heavy, like we're going to get to this exact point, blah blah blah. But like of all of the books that Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman wrote, this book, if I wanted to go back to it and wanted to feel more like a vibe of nostalgia and sadness for things that have been lost, this would be the book that I would probably go to. That's the biggest takeaway for me. It's just the vibe.
Yeah, it does have a dismal feel. I mean, it does. It has a grim, dismal feel. We see our characters doing things, and you know they have to follow a certain path. And they have to do these things, but at the same time, your heart breaks a little bit that they're having to do them.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of traditional for the second book in the trilogy to be that way, though.
Yes.
At least since Empire Strikes Back, you know, the middle installment was a little bit darker and grimmer.
Yeah.
I totally whiffed 5 minutes ago when we were talking about scenes to remember. This right here, Fistandanus and Raceland, the fight, the whole sequence where Raceland's studying under him. Although I am a little puzzled exactly when that took place, I'm guessing it must have been before Raceland went to Istar. You know, and so before the events of book one.
Yeah.
But
because he's already set up as Fistandanus.
Yeah, he's already in full cosplay, like I am Fistandanus, but it's actually him.
But I do remember loving the fight, you know, between the two, because I don't think I'd ever read a fantasy novel that, you know, quite had a wizard on wizard fight, you know, duel. I remember also, this is overall story for the trilogy. I remember being really enchanted with the idea of time travel in fantasy.
Yes.
I'd hardly read any time travel in science fiction. I think I'd probably watched more time travel on TV or in the films. But, you know, seeing time travel in a fantasy novel was just different. I really dug that. And it also introduces us to a character that has one of the great names in fantasy, Fistandanus.
Yeah.
I just love that name.
That's great.
It's up there. It's up there for me with Elon Moore and Tedranai and Elida Dolaverini Royhan.
Yeah.
I love Elida.
I can't even say
can't
that.
Stand the
I
character.
can't say it either.
Elida. That's all you get from me. Elida.
Yeah, Elida just shortened because I cannot do the full. Like, I can't.
It just rolls off my tongue. I must have practiced it or something.
Yeah, you do it pretty well.
I've said it out loud. Thank you.
Yes.
It's one of those names that, you know me, I'm a stickler for Wheel of Time's pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the story at hand, Fist and Daniel's getting his butt whooped by Raceland was fun.
That was very satisfying for me as a big Raceland fan.
And I love how the whole sequence utilized his street magician skills, you know, how he pocketed the stone, the bloodstone.
Mm-hmm.
And old Fisty never even noticed. So
to be copied later by Disney's Aladdin, only a little bit later by Aladdin going, I'm a street rat, remember? I'll improvise. It's the same kind of vibe with Jafar.
I didn't think of that, but that's a good point.
That's one of my favorite all-time movies, I'll have you know.
I love
it. It really is. I love that movie. Any other memories for you, Bill, that stand out?
No, only one. It was the scene where Raceland appears in the cell with So that one, I remember that specifically because it disturbed me so much as a, I think I was 13, 14 probably.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just ugly.
Yeah. I mean, there's one thing about killing another character in combat, but just cold-blooded, blowing him down.
And it's a defenseless gnome who did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing Raceland at that point sort of shifted the earlier points in the book for me, where now I'm questioning everything was him manipulating somebody else.
See, I'm fascinated with Raceland as a character.
Mm-hmm.
As a person, I'd like to punch him in the face. That's the hippie talking here. I would like to punch Raceland in the face.
That's true. You would.
As a character, though, on my top 20 list of favorite characters in fantasy, I've got Gollum on there. And Gollum's by no means a great person, good character. No. He's a great character, but not a good character.
Mm-hmm.
So
he does save the day. Spoiler alert.
I'm trying to remember why else I liked Raceland. Spoiler for what, an 80-year-old book?
I know. I mean, if anybody's watching this show, they know Lord of the Rings. Which brings me to your no wizard on wizard
Not
fight.
necessarily.
I'm like, dude, we had Gandalf in a wizard on wizard fight.
And Saruman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not in the books. In the movie.
That's true.
We never saw that in the books. No fight in the books.
Guess. It was pretty awesome in the movie. So
it was so awesome.
Yeah.
It was a great old man fight.
Spin around. I mean, that was great.
That movie is so quotable. Like every freaking scene. It's like you'd sit here all day. I love
the entire trilogy.
Me too. A+.
So I'm still trying to figure out why I've got Raceland on a list of favorite characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out why he's on there and Tasselhoff's not. Because Tasselhoff was my favorite character when I read this book.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, Tasselhoff is by far my favorite Dragonlance character. Of all the characters in all the Dragonlance books I've read, Tass is my favorite.
Agreed.
He's just so lovable, adorable, innocent, benignly innocent. He never really means you harm unless you hurt or are threatening to hurt one of his.
Yeah.
He's a very peaceful individual.
Yeah.
I think that dark dwarf who took a knife to the head might disagree, but yeah, for the most part.
Well, he was trying to hurt one of Tass's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm just saying he does have his breaking point where he's like, nah.
Yeah.
So he was everybody's favorite character when you read the books the first time, or did you have a different person?
For me, it's Raceland. So yeah, I think I've talked about that the other.
Why?
Dude,
not just because like of what you said, because for some reason, even though Taz, because here's the thing. Here's what it was for me, and this is not talking about this trilogy. We're gonna have to go back to the original Chronicles to answer this question, and then we'll go back if you want me to answer it. It was the scene in particularly where they were
Back to the Future.
They were exactly right. That's a good. I forget who they were fighting. It was an enemy encampment, and Taz was there, and he was actually doing really funny stuff. He got his head stuck in a wicker dragon head, and his little feet were kicking around in it, and they were trying to run him out. And Raceland started laughing. And it was the very first time that you see or hear of Raceland. Like, they heard a weird sound, and they said they described Raceland's laughter as like they never went to hear Raceland laugh again because it was the most eerie, god awful thing. And they were like actually more frightened about him laughing than the actual battle himself. And it was just because of Taz getting his head stuck in the wicker. It was because of Taz actually that Raceland laughed. But it just goes to show that you have this like shabbily, feeble character who's coughing, spitting up blood, gross, but like he can do stuff that you don't expect, even though that's Taz's entire thing. Like, Taz is always going to be, wonder what's that about? I wonder what's that about? I wonder, it's
Curious.
Going to be the same curiosity element at the same level of maximum go all of the time. Raceland, because he's a piece of shit sometimes, as much as I love him, is going to do stuff that you find despicable, but you're actually really morbidly curious as to, but like, what he may do next, or he may be nice. You don't know. Raceland is more to me of a, he may do something really freaking weird in this, where Taz, even though it's way more entertaining and Taz is so much better, you kind of know maybe-ish what Taz, he's going to try to look in someone's purse, but he's not going to mean to, or he's going to be some sort of comedic relief to a scene, in my opinion. And that's why I like reading about Raceland more, in my opinion. That's why I like him more. That's why.
Raceland actually gets a really good laugh in at Caramon in this book when Caramon gets stuck in the snare for the rabbit.
That's another laughing situation. That's definitely a laughing situation. I love Taz, but I don't know if I could have stopped myself from laughing if I'd been standing there seeing his legs sticking out of this wicker dragon trying to get out. And then when they when they cut it off, you know, he's all worried about his top knot.
That's right.
Yeah. But
anyway,
Raceland does have one, potentially someday, maybe if it was bigger, redeeming quality. Probably won't actually redeem him, but one good quality: his sympathy for gully dwarves.
That's it. If Boo-Poo wasn't in it, he would just be completely irredeemable.
And it's not just Boo-Poo; it's the gully dwarves that fought at Pax Darkus. The only dwarves to stand their ground. You know, the mountain dwarves and the doer all took off, but the gully dwarves weren't smart enough to figure out to run. They were told to stand there, so they stayed there. But Raceland seemed upset, you know, and he's like, "This isn't in the histories because nobody cared." And he, you know, Raceland, the way that it read in the audiobook, the way it read to me, listening to me, was that Raceland was bitter about the fact that nobody cared that a unit of gully dwarves died in defense of this place. You know, they just, and that plays into stuff I want to talk about later. You know?
Okay, crucial question though. Does that one redeeming feature, his love of this overlooked race, make up for all the other stuff he does?
Not
by a long shot.
He's got to do
that's
something.
That's why Raceland is like, I want to shank him. I've always wanted to shank him, and I want to shank him still.
Oh yeah, he totally deserves it by far. Absolutely.
I just want every spell he tries to cast to bounce back on him immediately, and him not to know that that's going to happen.
Well, for me, I think it's because last book I thought I was seeing flashes of his humanity and maybe his feelings for Chrysania, and everything like that. And then at the end of this book, he's like, nah. As long as I stay with her when she dies, she'll be happy. And guess what? I'm not going to do that either.
Yeah,
I'm going to walk right by. I'm like,
and
you are
and not look
spoiler
back.
alert, that's what he does.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, dude, you are just evil at this point.
Yep.
Done.
Yep.
Which I don't understand how he could be, where that came from. You know, his attraction to the evil. You know, as especially the way everybody. I mean, yeah.
I have a theory.
I have proof. I mean, they say flat out in the text that at the time of the testing, he was chosen because he had this spark of inner strength and this desire for power. They molded him to be what he is. They just didn't expect him to be strong enough to screw him over. That's why he is the way he is. They made him that way on purpose. They just didn't expect it to go to this extent. So that's on them, man. The mages who made the test. It's straight up on them.
Arsalan or something like that. Yeah, he was in the last book, the first book.
Yeah, and you know, he sent them back and totally wanted Chrysania to die.
Parsalian,
yeah. He's the one who engineered this whole thing, and it's like, well, here's the monster you created. Only in typical, you know, Mary Shelley fashion, you can't control the monster.
Yeah.
It's now stronger than you are.
Stronger than anybody.
Yeah.
Can't wait to read the next one. I have forgotten so much about the next one. Part of me wants to say somehow
the ending is epic. The ending is epic.
But I don't remember it.
I remember the ending. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah. It is epic.
It is very epic. You get the payoff. It's you do.
Doesn't change anything, but you get it.
I've read so many thousands of books since I read this book the first time.
Oh God!
And even the second time I read it.
Yeah.
Trying to remember everything is just. I can only store so many book stories up in my brain.
And you do it pretty good because you got a lot going on up there. I'm like, how do you?
I try. Thank you. I'm wrong a lot too, though.
Yeah, me too.
Well, join the club.
I've found that in live chat. You know, when they'll ask a question about something, I'll say no, it was here, and then somebody else will come along. Nope, I just looked it up. It's here.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, I was wrong. That's the thing, though. I can admit when I'm wrong, unlike most people on the internet.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I spent the entire last show calling her Chrysanthemum because I just I could
that
not
was great
nail,
though.
I could not nail Chrysania.
That was
Chrysania.
Yeah,
Chrysania.
Chrysanthemum.
Am I alone in not liking her?
No, we all nobody likes her.
Not even as a character. I don't like her as a person.
No,
not even as a character do I find her that interesting.
She's like Raceland's antithesis in every way. He's so interesting and she's so not.
He's smart. He's smart. She's not.
You know, she's gonna do the good stuff and he's gonna do the evil stuff, and she's kind of like floating along in her little flower palace himself, and he's like evil and decrepit. Like they're like, that's why they're kind of like the antithesis of each other and their match, and I think that's why the opposites attract thing was kind of going on. It just makes sense. She's just kind of fades into the page. Yeah, for her. Yeah, for him, he's just like, I'm going to use you.
I hate the way she's so ignorant and blinded.
Oh, she's so ignorant.
I mean, it's spelled out for her. And I mean, even at one point, Raceland completely rejects her. You know, pushes her
physically
off of him and is like, no.
Yeah.
And she's like, more.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the? You can't be that clueless.
Yeah, she's a little.
But she is.
Yeah.
I know Love Is Blind.
Stupid rich girl?
Geez.
Yeah. She plays that trope.
Rich girl.
Yes.
Seriously.
That's what she was. A spoiled rich girl. Before becoming a priestess. Revered daughter. I do, though, as much as I don't like it,
she's even God's favorite.
I want to defend her every time somebody calls
chosen.
her a witch. I hate the way they use the word witch in here. I hate the way it's used most of the time because it's almost exclusively misogynist.
Oh yeah.
You know, use of it. You're never going to see it used on a guy. Almost never. But usually it's used almost exclusively in fantasy and science fiction. If you look at Dune to describe women, and it pisses me off. It also pisses me off that these people, the people living in this time, aren't going to freak out at a wizard, but a person who can heal you with magic. Oh my God, we can't suffer a witch to live.
Well, you got to understand, in their eyes, the powers of the witch come from the gods who have desolated their land and abandoned them in their minds. So her power is tainted because it came from that source. His don't come from a god. They come from the natural order.
They think those gods are gone.
They think they abandoned
think the gods
them,
left.
Yes.
So they don't think they're there. I didn't interpret it as them thinking that they're still getting power from gods. They're getting their power from something bad. Is kind of the intimation when you call someone a witch.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the way they're looking at it.
I really hate the word, being used. It's a pet peeve.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really likes it. Team Witch.
I have no problem with
it. She's Wiccan. So
I was going to say I was going to say
in that
that.
context.
Yeah,
in that context,
I like it.
In that context, I have no problem with it. But in the context the way it's used in science fiction and fantasy, and most literature and most TV, it's almost always used derogatorily.
I think we can thank the Bible for that one.
Yeah.
Due to a misinterpretation, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right.
Of the King James version.
Yeah.
Only.
So what you guys think of Tass's story in this book?
I loved him. I mean, I thought it was hilarious. Especially when he's like, "Oh, I think I'm dead." And he's like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah, he's like, "I died. I think like that was really great."
His viewpoints are always so just fun.
He's becoming more and more like, you thought he was central. You kind of thought maybe in the Chronicles that he was central. No, in these books, Taz shines through, and then later in War of the Souls, he gets even like more of a. But from what I hear, because I haven't read those, but yeah, he pretty much drives it forward even more than Caramon and Raceland in his own way, right? Like Taz really does keep everybody together. He's like the mom over everyone. He was especially over Caramon, but he definitely is keeping everyone together. Even people who wouldn't listen to a neutral character, he's definitely there doing his stuff. So I like Taz.
He's also the Deus Ex Machina for like the entire book.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, everything that happens because the Kender can change time. So that 100%. Shifts the entire story.
Yes.
So, I mean,
there we go. Back to that whole time travel thing that I just love. Is Tess still your favorite? Even on this reread?
For me, yes.
Okay. And Raceland for you still, Jen?
I'm telling you, fam, this is probably his lowest point. This was his lowest point.
Okay.
But I was definitely sticking around for it because I was like, what's he gonna do at the end? Is he really gonna pull through with what he says with Chrysania in book 3? Is this really gonna happen? Like, is he going to challenge God? And really what's gonna be the outcome of that? And is he going to have an interior crisis and maybe actually change? Like, I don't know, you're rooting for him to maybe make a different decision. So, but to answer your, which of course he doesn't, but but this was probably his lowest point of all the books of Raceland of all time. This is where he really showed his whole ass.
And it's dank.
It's so bad. It's swamp ass. He still is, but man, I was loath to admit it, and I was distancing myself interiorly, like, what are you doing? But yeah, yes, I'll still say yes.
What do you guys think of
Caramon? My God, what a great arc! What a great arc from the first book! Holy crap! Yeah. Oh my God, Caramon, you're rooting for him. It's like the inverse directly of how much of an asshole Raceland is, and then how a wonderful Caramon's actually like growing up, discovering himself again. Like, he's completely almost out of that negative spiral that he was in the beginning of book 1. He's taking responsibility. He's getting himself like out of the alcoholism stupor. He's getting himself in charge. He's taking care of people. Like, I am super pumped for Caramon in this, and he has a self-discovery arc, and he actually grows a lot as a character. And I like Caramon the best of this book of all the books. Like, I really did.
Trying to recall, do they ever mention what he's drinking in camp?
Water.
This book? Is that ever?
When they first show up at the inn, the first inn they stop at, he orders wine for everybody else and orders water for himself.
Ooh.
Okay, I missed that.
I noticed that. So,
okay.
Yeah, he orders water for himself.
I actually played a D&D character who didn't drink. I played a dwarf. I played a dwarf in our tavern campaign because most of our game sessions we hung out at the tavern and just role played. But my dwarf didn't drink alcohol. He always ordered milk. He always ordered milk with a stein with a lid on it. He would flip it and then do like that, wipe his beard afterwards because he didn't want anybody seeing milk on his dwarven beard.
That's an interesting character. I like that twist. Yeah.
He had serious memory issues. Most of his life was a blank.
I gotta say, Caramon, at the end, prime moment when he was able to just go, you know what? I'm done. I'm done.
That was his biggest moment, I think.
That was such a good moment for him.
We're done. Period. That spiritual cutoff point. You know, I know it hurt him. He even reacts to it physically, even though it's an emotional pain. But that moment when he says, that's it, and he turns his back and walks away, I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Finally.
People will call Tasselhoff naive, but I think old boy right there is just as naive, if not more. At least, I think you said a blind spot earlier with Raceland.
Yes.
He's too trusting. He was always too trusting and too caring, and just refused to see Raceland's bad. You know, the Raceland's primary side of being bad. You know,
that's how he recognized it in Chrysania. He's like, I've seen this before. Look at her eyes. He even told Taz, you know, at the very end, he's like, look at her eyes. She's not going to listen. She's just, she drank the Kool-Aid. It's too late. And he recognized it because he was that.
Yeah.
So I think that's like I said, him at the end is a beautiful moment of sort of freeing himself. At the same time, you look back and he was kind of patronizing towards his brother a lot. You could see where Raceland is going to take that as, you know, his help, always being the running over and trying to take care of his brother. You can see where some resentment will build up around that. So it's understandable on one level, but I mean, to go to the links that Raceland goes, it takes it way too far. Insane.
Raceland's like maximum edgelord all of the time. Like, that's pretty much how you can describe him. My thing is, like, with Caramon having to do so much self-reflection and really making changes to himself, when someone does that, they also notice things around them other people have done about them and towards other people. Meaning, when Caramon went through that, like, his crucible or whatever, he realized like what Raceland was, because that much self-reflection and that much growth, you're only going to have that, you're only going to see that in other people that are around you. You're like, wait a minute, I'm no longer the person that I was before. So when they try to manipulate you, this is just like anybody else in real life. You're like, No, hold on, wait. I'm past that now. You're talking to a person that no longer exists. I've grown past that and see that, and now I realized what you've been doing this whole time, not only to me, but to other people and who you actually really are. But you have to look at things through a new lens, a new light, and that's gonna that affects everything. And you're not even ready for it when you realize it. You're like, wait, hold on, what? I'm realizing so many things, not only about myself, but just how everyone treats me and how I've allowed it to happen. And it's really great how they wrote that. I agree with you, Glenn. Yeah.
What I paralleled that with is a lot of people who get sober, particularly through the AA program, will go through that sort of thing where as they become sober, they look at their friend group and everything. And they start to see the enablers who are there, and those who are pushing them towards that drink and things like that. And they have that wake up moment and they have to excise those people out of their lives. And it's difficult and it's very, very hard. So I kind of, in my mind, paralleled it with that, because I mean, he basically goes through the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. He just didn't have a support group to lean on for it.
Yeah.
Not really.
He kind of had to tough it through, but
So, are there any life experiences that have changed your perspective on this story from what you had before to now? Has anything in your life?
I am not qualified to talk about that. The answer is resoundingly yes. Yeah. I've talked about it publicly once before, but just don't trust your heroes. Don't trust people that you think how can I say this being like alluding to it? The answer is just resoundingly yes. And I met someone who I thought was a good person, or not even a good person, but somebody I thought was like really awesome. And I really thought would be a positive influence on my life and a community at large. And they were like part of, I wouldn't not say a celebrity, but at the same time, you just had to realize that people wear masks. And when you actually get to know someone behind, or not know someone, but you just kind of pick up on some things that you're being maybe manipulated for a certain purpose or reason, the way Caramon was, you're like, oh, okay. And it's like what Bill said and you said about excising yourself from a group of people who were enablers, which so that's something that I've had to do in the past, like I'd probably say 6 years of my life. So coming back to the book again, because I agree with the both of you, these books are written for a younger audience. They're written for, and we all read them like when you're younger, when you're in your teens, when you're 20s and that sort of thing. Going back through adulthood, there's some heavier tones in these books that weren't addressed in the Chronicles series. Brothers growing up, brothers having to make decisions. When you're young, you're not really faced with that. Maybe you're close with your siblings or your parents still, some people, when they're reading these books. And, when you grow up, you're like, okay, you have to make, who is the person that I'm going to become? And does this jive with the people that have been my friend group up to this point? And the answer is almost never yes for both. So you just have to kind of make those realizations. So Caramon is a great example of, wow, I've been living in some toxicity, not only kind of with myself and my feelings, but I've really pushed my wife away. Like Bill was talking about, push my, let my brother manipulate me. I have just treated my friends like crap. So you've just really got to examine that. And he had to make a decision about, is this what I really want to do for the rest of my life? Is this how I'm going to just be for the rest of my days? Because that once you realize that's what's going on, you have to make a conscious choice to continue to do it each and every single moment. But up until that point, you may be making unconscious decisions. You don't even realize that this is what because Caramon was just like addicted. He didn't understand, but then when he kind of had to take a break away from those toxic behaviors and look at himself. He was like, yeah, I don't want to be this person. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anything for you, Bill?
The parts I remembered didn't really change for me. There's a lot of things that I can imagine I probably look at different, like, the whole thing with Caramon, he's thinking about Tika, I want to go home, and then he confesses his love to Chrysania, and I'm like,
that was weird. That
as
was
a married
really weird
guy,
moment.
I don't care how long my wife and I are, distant. I'm on vacation, whatever. I don't care. I can't see myself doing that.
It's true.
So I found that to be a little weird. It was thrown in
at
a weird time. And, this is really his self-discovery. And that sort of moment just felt off.
I agree.
And I'm like, was that just thrown in for
out of character?
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
It was out of character for him.
Really out of character and a little bit off. So for me, that was, my life where it is now, and my relationship with my wife have me feeling a certain way about that sort of quick switch to, oh, I'm in love with you. And I'm like, you wouldn't be that quick to jump to that, man. Yeah. So for me, that was the one thing that stood out.
For me, I don't know if there's any specific experiences other than being an uncle. I don't have any kids of my own, but I do feel more of a parental protectiveness towards Hasselhoff than I ever did before. Almost like he's a young teenager that needs to be protected, watched out for. And I guess, I side with Raistlin when it comes to, protecting those poor gully dwarves. They just get, they live in the filth because that's all they're allowed to live in. Nobody wants them anywhere else. You could clean them up and teach them better ways. I don't know. I think, I don't know. The books are not nice to gully dwarves, and that kind of annoys me. It's one of the things that. I'll move on to the next question. Then, are there any elements of this book that clash with today's social and/or political climate, or are problematic for you? The racism, the utter disdain and disgust everybody has for gully dwarves. The disbelief for anything a Kender says. Kenders cannot possibly be telling you the truth. There's just so much racial bigotry going in every direction.
That's true.
In this world, and it's baked into Dungeons and Dragons. As much as I love old school Dungeons and Dragons stuff, it's kind of baked into, there's an automatic dislike. Tolkien did it. Elves and orcs automatically hate each other. Elves are automatically good. Orcs are automatically evil. I don't like that. It's one of my problems I've realized I have with Lord of the Rings.
Luckily, that's changed. The latest editions, you can play orcs, half orcs. I know Pathfinder has really opened up their class system. You can now play, a good kobold. In fact, I'm starting a campaign soon where I'm going to be a kobold cleric.
Nice.
For a chaotic good god. So I'm going to be healing people as a kobold. So
don't stub your toe too many times. You might fall over dead.
It can happen. We'll see.
Just from stubbing your toe. Yeah, it's one thing I liked about Al-Qadim back during second edition D&D. In the Land of Fate, Zakara, it was like the Arabian Adventures setting. But one of the key things there is there was no species animosity between elves and orcs and ogres and dwarves and all that. You would find an elf married to an orc, in Al-Qadim. It was completely possible to happen. And I really like that. It's actually probably my favorite D&D setting yet, but I got to get my hands on the 5th edition book for that.
I think I think more like toward dwarves and elves that was just more like bad memory, bad juju between the two of them. They both remember things and carry grudges for a very long time, both races too.
And they live for a very long time, so nobody forgets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mountain and hill dwarves.
True.
You know, they've got a serious animosity because of things, and that's how it always starts, is because something stupid, and then next thing you know, you've got millennia, centuries long feuds going. What, if any, are some themes and character flaws? I don't know why those are bunched together, that you notice now that you may have missed from previous reading of this book, or even that you did read but stood out to you this time on. We've kind of gone over the character flaws.
I think themes, predestination is a big one. They sort of have, you know, they're from the future, they're back in the past, and there's a certain path they have to follow. So that predestination, you know, sort of cements them into doing things that they normally wouldn't do. So I think that's a big one.
Piggybacking off that, I guess fate versus choice. That's a real big theme. Like what's the fate of, like, just like Bill said, that directly plays into what you say. Like, this is the fate of how we know the future is going to be, but do you have any wiggle room to make personal choices within the greater overarching like arc of how history is going to remember things? So
if you have a kinder, yes.
Or gnome, or dwarf. I think all three of them could cause time to change.
Any one of the gray gym. We haven't got to the gray gym yet, but any of the gray gym races. Which is, they're all three connected that way, but that's a secret for later.
I saw a lot of loyalty floating around in this book. You know, you would get loyalty from the undercover Solamnic Knights.
Yes.
You know, Taz's loyalty to Caramon and, well, his friends, which up until he killed Nimsh included Raceland. Caramon's loyalty for the longest time, and, you know, to Raceland, I mean, that we've gone on for a while about, and, you know, how he breaks free from it. I don't know if this is a theme, but there's an awful lot of arrogance going on in these stories. I mean, from her over there being one of the most arrogant characters in the series. Raceland's arrogant. The Mountain Dwarves are arrogant, especially Duncan. You know, the only decent mountain dwarf that they had in the story named the Mountain Dwarf was Karis. I like him. That'd be a sight to behold, shaven dwarf.
I gotta say, Karis was a welcome sort of breath of fresh air when it comes to warriors in the Dragonlance world. He was a man who did not enjoy it, would prefer not to do it if he could, and mourned the fact that he had to fight his own people. You know, he doesn't matter, you know, if it's a hill dwarf or not, they're dwarves. So, I mean, he shaved off his own beard because he was ashamed that he was doing it. And that is kind of a change. We hadn't seen a reluctant warrior in this setting. I mean, remember Caramon in the first 3 books was pretty gung-ho about killing things. So,
and now he's not. And now he's not.
Yeah. And I think Karis, like I said, was a great character. And I loved him. And, you know, just felt heartbroken for him.
Yeah. He was a great
character.
Probably my favorite new character. By far.
Yeah.
He was our Androl.
Yeah. Our late edition, nobody thought he would matter.
I'm like, oh my god, he's Androl.
That's such a good comparison.
Any other themes you guys found? I saw ambition.
Blinded by love. I mean, that sort of self-ignorance because you care about somebody. I mean, that kind of goes in with what Jim was saying, you know, earlier with the sort of self-delusion when you meet somebody who can be very negative. There, you know, there's a little bit of that going on, but you have that wake up moment. And then in this, we don't have that wake up moment for one of the characters. Rosania is just lost.
She gone. She's
so
cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Yeah.
She's one of the two that I pegged with tons of ambition. Nobody else really showed a lot. Well, I mean, Caraman showed some ambition in leading, but I don't think that's really what he was after. And he didn't really try to be a leader of this army. It kind of just happened. That's how he had to save his life.
Yeah,
but he was good at it.
Yeah,
he was damn good at it.
He showed some small amount of ambition once he got in the role, but it doesn't compare to Chrysania.
Yeah.
And Raceland, Chrysania's up. Raceland's really high up there, but Chrysania is pretty high up there too.
Oh, I agree.
Ambition.
She's got the arrogance to think she can, basically kill evil, and it's like,
single-handedly.
She's not really any different than the King Priest.
I was about to say she got close. I think a couple of times she got close to being able to commune with the gods a couple of times, wasn't she? Like a couple of times in the book, like she was treading damn near to losing favor.
She is given the ability to use her magic when she needs to, but she's never had trouble doing that.
But
what do you guys think of that opening scene in the tower? In the darkness. I didn't remember it. I remembered it a little bit, but I wasn't sure what book.
Yeah.
And who all was there.
Right.
It blends together. It really truly does.
I remembered Caraman waking up and being blind.
Yes.
And then finding out that they were in Tristan Danilus's tower.
That was a scary moment. It was very well written. It was probably one of like the best like prose to actually put you in the scene and make you feel like a real heightened sense of urgency of what's going on in that moment.
Yeah.
For real. Yeah. It wasn't horror, but it was pretty close. It was borderline. Yeah, the stakes were high. It was really good tension. Very good.
Very creepy shit.
Yeah.
Bloodthirsty guardians. What were you going to say, Bill?
No, I was yelling at my cat.
Ah, okay.
My cat just started yelling. I'm like, no, stop it.
Was there any other topics you guys wanted to discuss?
No, I mean, like I said, the mood of this book is pretty dark and somber. There are some pretty good moments. I mean, like Caraman setting up the whole obstacle thing to get the two sides to work together, I think is a beautiful moment. There's little moments like that lighten the story enough where I didn't get bogged down and go, dear God, this is depressing.
Yeah.
But the rest of it is pretty dark. And you understand why. This is just after the cataclysm. Everybody is struggling. They're angry. Right. They hate the gods. I mean, so you get it, but at the same time, too much of it, and you're just like, ugh, I don't want to read anymore. This is, right. But they had some great moments that were just sort of sparse throughout there. Like I said, those little moments that lightened everything up. And I think Toss was instrumental on that.
100%.
So I have a question, two questions for each of you. Would you would you recommend this book to someone who's, say, YA range, 25 and under?
Yes, if they've read up to this point. With the warning that this is going to be a little bit darker than normal.
I would say I would agree with Bill because that was my answer for the previous one, but this one's a little bit different. This is probably one of the most darkest up to this point. Summer Flame is way darker in my opinion, but up to this point, it's the darkest that we have in the series, and I would say come back to it because you're going to realize the character's struggles, meaning Caraman and Chrysania, meaning her lack of a struggle, because just how oblivious she really is. You're going to realize stuff later that I don't think a YA person could really understand or go through until they get a little bit older. So the answer, I agree with Bill, but like with a caveat, you aren't going to really appreciate the things that you read as much until later, even though you're going to understand them. There's a difference between understanding something you're reading on paper and actually like, oh, I know what this feels like, absorbing it in that way. Yeah.
The second question, would you recommend this book to somebody 35, 40 and up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think
Absolutely.
they would get a lot out of it? More so than previous Dragonlance books?
Yes.
Yeah, as long as they understand what's happening. I sort of
agree.
think you have to understand the whole cycle of Caramon and Raceland to really appreciate what's happening in this book.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So only people who've read the Chronicles first.
Yeah.
I would say yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. I agree. You know, this is probably the most recommendable one for the middle age set.
Yep.
But you know, I do think it's still pretty accessible by teenagers and 20 somethings. I mean, like I said, we all read it when we were teenagers.
Yeah.
Or 20 something. So, so, well, I think we've covered everything. I don't see anything I missed pulling up here. So, thank you, Jen, for coming on again to discuss Dragonlance with us. So this has been fun having you on for this.
Always a pleasure.
We've got you on again in 3 weeks to discuss Test of the Twins.
Very excited about that installment. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Can't wait to be on. Yeah.
Tonight we're recording for our other channel. We're starting, as we mentioned earlier, Children of Dune, and that will be released on Tuesday. So please check that out on What the Adaptation. Bill's first day or first episode as a full cast member. Congrats, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is almost the most official announcement we've done yet.
I know.
We've mentioned it, but we've never actually announced it. So thanks for watching, everybody. Any final words, Bill?
Be nice to each other. It's not that hard.
Not that hard. Like I say, don't forget to be awesome.